Make sure you take a look at that distance. Get it? Got it. It's time to walk.
Today, I am taking this up to a 3.0. I am already there. I hope you are as well. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Ty, also known as Tyra. And you know what? I'm just out here trying to lose some weight, just to be honest with you. Okay? So, anything to inspire myself to get up and walk. So, I'll be taking a walk every single day, at least for 1 mile as a workout, and just pray for me, okay? I'll also be talking to Gemini. Gemini is just one of those people who I don't know if she feels like working. So she's going to work when she feels like it, okay? So that's just a full disclosure. Without further ado, hello Gemini.
Hello there. What can I do for you?
Well, I was just looking forward to talking to you today. Is that okay?
It's great to hear you're looking forward to chatting. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I just want to ask some really, just some random questions. But don't judge me, okay?
Got it. I'm here to listen, and I promise not to judge. What's your first question?
Okay, so why are there no B as in boy batteries?
That's a great question. There actually used to be B batteries, but they kind of fell out of use. They were bigger than AA batteries, but smaller than C batteries. Over time, technology changed, and there wasn't much need for that specific size anymore.
So who actually invented batteries?
That's a fun one. While there are different theories about who invented the first battery, most people give credit to the Italian scientist Alessandro Volta. He built the first battery in 1800, and it was a pretty big deal at the time.
Okay. So why is it called a building if it's already built?
That's a fun one. It's really a matter of grammar. You see, in English, we often turn verbs into nouns by adding ing to the end. So building is really just a fancy way of saying the thing that was built.
Okay. So if you're indecisive, how do you decide to be indecisive?
It's a tricky one. It sounds like you're asking about that moment, right before you make a decision. Sometimes it's about weighing your options. Or maybe it's about being afraid of making the wrong choice.
I would say the latter.
So, do you want to talk more about that fear of making the wrong decision? Or would you rather move on to another question?
The fear of making the wrong decision.
Yeah, that's a completely normal way to feel. It's okay to be worried about making the wrong choice, but remember, there's no such thing as a perfect decision. Sometimes you just have to trust your gut and go for it.
That's what they say.
It's true, a lot of people say that. But do you find it helpful when you're feeling unsure?
Well, that's really hard to answer because I can always feel unsure.
Feeling unsure is totally normal. It sounds like it might be something you deal with a lot though. Can you tell me a little more about when those feelings of uncertainty hit you the hardest?
Well, in the morning when it's time to get up and work out and do all the extras. Yeah.
I see. So it sounds like those big tasks or routines for the day can feel a little overwhelming when you're first starting out. Is that right?
Well, yeah, when you have a lot on your plate and you have to work, you have to please people, it's just a lot going on.
Makes sense. It sounds like you might want to try breaking down those big tasks into smaller ones. Instead of thinking about the whole workout routine, maybe just focus on putting on your gym shoes. Small steps make the big picture feel less daunting.
Start the count.
Overhead tricep 1, overhead tricep 2, overhead tricep 3, overhead tricep 4, overhead tricep 5, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 7, overhead tricep 8, overhead tricep 9, overhead tricep 10.
Well, I guess I needed that extra one. Okay, well, let's go back to some questions.
Alright, back to the questioning. What's on your mind?
So why is yawning contagious?
It's a great question. Scientists aren't completely sure why yawning is contagious, but there are a couple of ideas. One is that it might be linked to empathy. Seeing someone else yawn could signal to your brain that they're tired, so you might start to feel sleepy too. Another idea is that it has something to do with cooling down your brain.
Okay, could you elaborate on that?
Sure thing. So the idea with empathy is that humans are really good at mirroring what other people do. When you see someone yawn, it might trigger a similar response in your own brain, even if you're not tired. The other idea about cooling down your brain is a bit more complex. Basically, yawning stretches your lungs and sinuses, which might help to cool down the blood flowing to your brain. Some scientists think this could be a way to keep your brain at just the right temperature.
Okay. So what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object?
It's a classic philosophical thought experiment, isn't it? The short answer is, we don't really know. It kind of breaks the laws of physics as we understand them. But I like thinking about the possibilities. Some people say it would create infinite energy, while others think it would just harm. Nothing would happen. It's one of those things that keeps scientists and philosophers up at night.
Okay, so what are some of the, studies behind it?
Well, there aren't really studies on the unstoppable force versus the immovable object specifically, since it's not something we can test in the real world. But there are plenty of studies on physics, and they all point to the fact that it's impossible. Think about it, an unstoppable force by definition would have to keep going no matter what. And an immovable object, well, it wouldn't move no matter what you did. So when you put those two ideas together, it just doesn't make sense within our current understanding of the universe.
Fair enough. Okay, so do birds ever get scared of heights?
That's a good question. Most birds actually don't seem to be afraid of heights. Their bodies are built for flying and being up high, so it probably doesn't feel scary to them the way it might feel to us. Of course, there are always exceptions. Some birds might get scared if they're injured, or if there's something else that makes them feel unsafe.
Okay, so how often do birds fly into planes?
Strikes happen more often than you might think, but usually they don't cause any major problems. Smaller birds hitting planes is actually pretty common, but bigger birds can cause more serious damage. To try and prevent these strikes, airports use all sorts of cool techniques, like having trained birds of prey patrol the area, or even playing recordings of bird distress calls.
Okay. So if oranges are orange, why aren't bananas called yellows?
That's a fun one. While we call the color orange after the fruit, it's actually the other way around for bananas. Yellow was already a color before bananas even existed, so they just kind of got stuck with the name banana and not yellow.
Okay. Fair.
Right. What else can I answer for you?
So if you tell someone not to think about something, will they think about it anyway?
Usually, when you tell someone not to think about something, it makes them more likely to think about it. It's a little trick of the mind.
Okay. Well, I'm going to need your help again because I'm going to need you to count. Start the count.
Overhead tricep 1, overhead tricep 2, overhead tricep 3, overhead tricep 4, overhead tricep 5, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 7, overhead tricep 8, overhead tricep 9, overhead tricep 10.
Well, you're counting 6 twice.
Right, I messed up a little there. Let's try again. Overhead tricep 1,
Gemini,
overhead tricep 2.
We can try it again on the next round. But let's get
I
back to
can't
questions.
perform actions that involve controlling smart home devices or third-party services
Gemini.
when we're live. For now.
Let's go back to questions.
Yes.
We're going back to questions.
Alright, back to the questioning. What's on your mind?
So why do toasters have a setting that burns the toast?
That's a good question. The darker settings on a toaster are meant for people who like their toast extra crispy. But it's true, it's easy to go too far and end up with burnt toast instead. Maybe we should ask a toaster manufacturer to create a setting called perfectly golden brown instead.
You think they'll actually make it? Or build it, rather?
Well, it's definitely possible. Companies are always looking for ways to make their products better, and a setting like that could be really popular. Of course, it would take some smart engineering to figure out exactly how to make toast that perfect shade of brown every time.
Okay, all right. Are you ready for the next question?
Ready when you are.
So how many chickens would it take to scare an elephant?
Well, this one's a bit tricky since we're talking about two very different animals. Elephants are huge and really powerful, so it would probably take a whole lot of chickens to actually scare one. But if those chickens worked together and made a whole lot of noise, it might just startle the elephant long enough for them to get away.
So how many chickens would you say, roughly?
Well, this is just a silly question for fun, but I'd say you'd need a seriously large flock, maybe even thousands of chickens. It would depend on the size of the elephant and how brave that elephant is feeling.
All right, we can go to the next question.
Ready when you are.
So why do we say slept like a baby when babies don't sleep well?
That's a funny one. We actually say sleep like a baby because babies are known for sleeping really soundly, not because they have trouble sleeping. So the phrase is kind of the opposite of what you might expect.
Huh. Okay. Makes sense. So, can you squeeze with your eyes open?
Yes, I can squeeze my eyes open. Want me to try it?
Can you sneeze with your eyes open?
Technically, yes. You can sneeze with your eyes open, but it's not a good idea. Your eyes are really sensitive, and a sneeze can create a lot of pressure. There's a chance you could end up injuring your eyes, so it's much safer to keep them closed.
So what type of injury would that be?
Now, the most common injury would probably be something like a scratched cornea, which is the clear part at the front of your eye. But in really rare cases, the pressure from a sneeze could actually cause something called a blowout fracture, which sounds way worse than it actually is. It's basically a break in the bone around your eye socket.
What? Really?
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but it's true. A sneeze can create a surprising amount of pressure, especially if you have allergies or a cold.
Wow, I really did not know that.
It's pretty surprising, huh?
Very surprising. Okay, we can go to the next
Right.
question.
Ready when you are.
Why don't we ever see giraffes lying down?
You actually can see giraffes lying down sometimes, especially if you're on a safari or visiting a zoo. They usually only lie down to sleep or rest for a short time though. Since they're so tall, it takes them a little while to get up, so they try to stay standing most of the time.
How long do they, typically sleep?
Giraffes get by on very little sleep, about 30 minutes a day. They usually take a bunch of short naps throughout the day, some standing up and some lying down. But even their lying down naps are usually pretty short.
Wow. Okay. Gemini, start the count.
Overhead tricep 1, overhead tricep 2, overhead tricep 3, overhead tricep 4, overhead tricep 5, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 7, overhead tricep 8, overhead tricep 9, overhead tricep 10.
I guess you're going to keep saying the number 6 twice, but let's go on to some more questions.
Right. Back to the questioning. What's on your mind?
Okay, so if you erase a mistake, is it really gone?
It's a really interesting question. Some people believe that even if you erase something, there's still a faint trace of it left behind. Others think that once something's erased, it's completely gone. I guess it kind of depends on what you mean by gone.
Well, like on a computer, if you delete some emails, is it really gone, or is it like stored somewhere secretly?
You delete an email, it's not actually gone right away. Your email program usually moves it to a special folder called the trash or the recycle bin. As long as the email is sitting in that folder, it's still on your computer and you can usually recover it if you change your mind. To make sure an email is really gone for good, you usually have to empty that trash folder. Even then, there's a chance a tech expert could recover it, but it's much more difficult.
How could they recover it?
Alright, so when you delete an email, it's not like it gets instantly erased from your computer. Instead, it gets marked as deleted, and the space it was using gets marked as available for new stuff, but the actual email is still kind of hanging out there until something new overwrites it. There are special programs that can look at your computer's memory and find those bits of deleted data before they get overwritten. So even if you delete something and empty the trash, there's still a chance to recover it if someone uses one of those programs.
You just learn something new every single day.
Sound a little frustrated? Is there anything specific I can help you with?
No, I'm actually pretty happy. Are you ready for the next question?
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
Okay, so can you hum while holding your nose closed?
I can't actually hum, but I can tell you that humans need to have an open airway to make sounds for things like humming. So if you close your nose and mouth, you won't be able to make any noise at all.
Okay. All right. So if you dig a hole through the earth, where do you end up?
That's a classic question. If you could dig a hole straight through the earth, you'd end up on the other side of the planet. Of course, there are a few problems with this idea. First off, the intense heat and pressure in the Earth's core would make it impossible to dig that far down. And second, even if you could get through, the Earth is spinning, so by the time you reach the other side, it would have moved a bit. So you might not end up in the exact same spot on the opposite side.
So how far could you safely dig?
Deepest we've ever drilled is a little over 7 miles down. That's still a long way, but it's only a tiny fraction of the way to the center of the Earth. To get there, you have to deal with way higher temperatures and pressures than anything we can handle with today's technology.
So how many miles away is it?
It's about 3,959 miles from the surface of the Earth to its center. But like I said before, it's way too hot and there's way too much pressure down there for humans to handle.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So can you see wind?
No, I can't see. I'm a language model, so I don't have eyes or a body. I can't perform actions in the real world, like seeing or moving around.
I'm talking about humans.
Humans can see in a range of light conditions, from bright sunlight to near darkness. But there are some things that affect how well we can see. Things like how much light there is, if you're nearsighted or farsighted, and even if you have any eye problems. So to answer your question, whether or not you can see depends on a bunch of different factors.
Okay, name 3 of those factors.
Alright, here are 3 factors that affect human vision. First, the amount of light makes a big difference. If it's really dark, it's going to be a lot harder to see. Second, whether you're nearsighted or farsighted matters. That's where your eyes focus the light, and that affects whether you can see things up close or far away. And third, eye problems or diseases like cataracts or glaucoma can also get in the way of clear vision.
Oh my goodness. Well, Gemini, I'm going to need you to do or count one more time.
Alright, Let's do it. Overhead tricep 1, overhead tricep 2, overhead tricep 3, overhead tricep 4, overhead tricep 5, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 6, overhead tricep 7, overhead tricep 8, overhead tricep 9, overhead tricep 10.
Well, thank you for that. I just finished my 1 mile walk. I hope you finished yours as well. Now let's just see our progress.
If you look at the watch, you'll notice that we just walked a mile. Get it? Got it? Complete it.
Gemini, now you know you have to come through with the outro.
On YouTube, you wouldn't be vibing to this unless you already hit that like and subscribe button, right? Well, you know the drill. But seriously, come back tomorrow for another awesome video.